tattooed on my wiener. Why? Because women love to blow money.
Ouch! Welcome to the Lair of the Unknown, my friends. The darkest channel where reality becomes fascination. I am your host, the Dark Lord. So believe it or not, my friends, tattooing may have begun quite a while ago, but it hasn't grown in popularity until more recent times, such as the 19th to 20th centuries. One of the biggest questions I, the Dark Lord, myself have about tattoo origins is what do they use for ink, and how are they able to make ink in different colors? It has been going on for the better part of 4,000 years, though as I have previously stated that Otzi the Iceman, who lived in the 3000s period, was the first inked individual discovered. Remember that, discovered with tattoo ink. Bones, branches, and stones were used to make the design, but what about the most important part? The ink. Obviously, in this time period, they may have not had a scarcity in ink ingredients, but it was the lack of the proper smartness of the mind of how they were going to get the ink in and how they were going to change the ink's colors. With the sources they had available to them, smoke, charcoal, a variety of veggie gums, and water were used to create the first tattooing ink in history. Apparently it was thicker than what we use today, obviously, and could only produce a black color. Over evolutionary times during battles and whatnot, tattoo ink began to spread worldwide and began a much bigger and wider production to the point where the ingredients of tattoo ink began to evolve colors in tattoos. They added veggie and animal extracts with colors to be added to the production. Eventually, Romans, who were known to be using these methods for tattooing for some unknown reason, observed a point where ink was expelled from a squid, and curiosity led them to use it to their advantage by using the squid's ink to further their tattoo production, which in fact worked. They realized that some animals, such as squids or even octopuses, would eject black ink when threatened. The Romans began calling this liquid sapphire and decided to use it for writing and other known sources. However, it was not until around 1,000 years ago that modern tattoo use began. It was ingredients found in the galls of oak trees that led to the discovery of modern-day tattoo ink. Insects would lay their offspring on different parts of the oak trees called galls. These galls contain a chemical known as tannin, or however that's pronounced, which was mixed with other elements that could produce tattoo ink over the point where they could. Modern tattoo use began 1,000 years ago. It wasn't until the 19th century that tattoo use began becoming more popular, even into the 20th century when it was being used even more to the point where they could do realistic work, watercolor work, and even new school work. When they did realistic work, they would use different styles such as color gradients and shade work to not wanting to make outlines and using blended colors to make soft designs, which would eventually make them a very popular style of tattooing. New school designs would make the tattoo look cartoonish and dynamic, eventually looking like something out of fantasy elements. In 1993, Russian archaeologist Natalia Polsmik discovered the mummified remains of a famous Siberian ice maiden known as the Princess of Yukok, which was a member of the Pazurk culture, or Scythian nomadic people living in the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia, Russia, in the 5th century BC. Preserved for 2,400 years, the photos of this princess remains show the geometric tattoos and animal designs covering a majority of her body, which are considered the oldest and most preserved tattoos in the world. She was probably using old school designs to represent her social status, tribal identity, and spiritual beliefs. It is also noted that she was buried along the same way I, the Dark Lord myself, will be buried alongside her jewelry and clothing. I will also have the professional name of the Dark Lord engraved in my tombstone, and no matter what, that is how other people will remember me as. These tattoos and other findings significantly gives us insight into the different cultures of the Berserk people and what they were doing in these evolving time periods. There is a television series that heavily revolves around tattooing and everything about it, including its history, how it evolved from ancient times to modern times, different stages of its creation, and especially its different types, including regular to 3D designs. This show is called Ink Masters. A number of tattoo artists join in to compete against others on various and difficult designs to make it in a short time period. The last tattoo artist standing is awarded 100 grand and is crowned Ink Master, and is also featured in Ink magazine. Of course, let's watch a clip of that for a moment.
First to tattoo a neo-traditional hot rod or chopper, and your time starts now.
Alright, let's do this. Put the stencil on, yeah. When you're doing hot rods and choppers, you want to make them dynamic. The only way to make something dynamic is to bump up the contrast with a lot of black and a lot of bright, solid, bold color. Without that, we're going to really have a flat tattoo and it'll be easy to pick apart.
Whatever you do, lay perfectly still.
How was it initially? Not bad?
Oh, fine. Tattoo away.
I found something that is a close match to her bike, so I was able to do a neo-traditional rendering of it.
Kick their asses, girl.
I am.
Want to go back home and say, you know what, this chick rocked it.
My canvas loves it. It's boosting up my ego a little bit. I think I'm gonna do awesome.
To get all this gray done. I'm going to kill this tattoo.
How you doing, man? So that's just the V engine of your bike?
Time-wise, I figured let's just make the motor nice and beefy.
Yeah, better start that engine, you know what I mean?
As a veteran
This show is laid out in basic format and special format. During the basic format, a flash challenge is held. It does not usually involve tattooing, but other cosmetology skills, including painting, hair cutting, and etching. Winner of this challenge chooses their human canvas and decides the human canvases for their challengers. Following the challenge comes the elimination challenge, which is when the contestants are paired with their human canvas and given 4 to 6 hours to tattoo their official design. Once completed, they are brought forth to the judges and critiqued one by one, and at the end, one person is eliminated and one winner is declared. The special format contained the final challenge, although it was not present in Season 2. This includes tattooing for up to 18 hours, broken down into 4 6-hour sessions. The finalists did not have an acquired goal to face, only to do it in a final time period. As I have previously said, a winner is given 100 grand and the title of Ink Master, as well as being featured in Ink magazine. Now, a big ass question that I, the Dark Lord myself, especially have is this: who in God's name came up with the idea to tattoo their bodies? Was it a single individual, or was it a whole group of people who decided to carve ink into their skin? Because odds are, Otzi the Iceman was not the only one who had the single idea of inking his skin. Believe it or not, nobody will even has answered that question, and it probably will never be answered because it was too long ago in the past that it came about. However, there is another 2 options people choose when it comes to tattoos, and that includes removing tattoos and covering tattoos. You see, tattoo removing is a pretty nasty business because it is such a major process, even bigger than getting the tattoo itself. However, covering tattoos is a much simpler business. I, the Dark Lord myself, am in the process of getting my right black shoulder tattoo covered with a werewolf tattoo, which is going to make it 1,000 times better. Even though tattoo removal and getting a tattoo are done in sessions, tattoo removing is still more brutal. When they start by removing the tattoo by injecting it with lasers, which break down the ink particles, making the design fade over time. When they cover a tattoo, depending on what kind of design it is and what colors are involved, they will usually just cover the old design with a much larger, more colorful design, right where the original tattoo was at. Most of the time when you get a tattoo, or thinking about getting a tattoo, you better make sure you know exactly what you want to avoid having to go through that nasty process. Alrighty, my friends, join me next time when I epically conclude this interesting and fascinating topic of tattoo evolution and explain more about tattoo removal, covering, and its history. Ciao, bitches.